What's up, everybody? Welcome to another F.L.O.W Presents. I'm Rob Harris here, member of the F.L.O.W team. And as you look and see, we don't have a large panel today, but we have faces that you all have come to know. And it's our F.L.O.W team talking about shacking up. And why? Because what is cuffing season without a good conversation about shacking up? So let's get right into this. Let's get it hot and ready. I'm going to ask all my people here, all my F.L.O.W team members, should you live with somebody before you get married? Simply put, should you live with somebody before you get married? Whoever feels ready, let's get into there.
I would say no.
Because
I just feel as though it kind of dumbs down the importance of marriage. Under certain circumstances, I can understand living with someone before you get married, but I think it's best to wait till you're actually married. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You're good.
Okay.
Wait to get married because it dumbs down the experience if you live with them before you get married, is what I hear from you.
Yep.
All right. What else somebody got?
I think it depends. Few years ago, I would have agreed with Araba and said, no, wait until you get married before living with the person. But growth, life, and experience has just changed my position on it. So I think that for me, there are conditions to it. It's not a straight yes or no answer.
There are conditions. Then let me hear. So I want to go back to what them conditions could be.
Yeah, I mean, life is life. Stuff happens. But realistically, I mean, it's not the best idea to be together before you're married because you got to make a whole commitment, right? So without that commitment, you really shouldn't necessarily be together. But sometimes some people make the commitment before the ring is there. So it's a sticky situation sometimes.
Let's keep it buck, right? So outside, and I haven't given my answer yet because y'all the panelists right now. Araba is the only one says that it dumbs down the experience. But Araba, what do we say to the people that have lived together 2, 3, 4 years and still got married and have marriages 6, 7, 8 years?
Good for them.
uh, would you, do you feel like their experience was diminished because they lived together beforehand? I mean, what is dumbing down the experience? What do you lose out on?
Listen to me. The goal is, right,
Mhm.
to eventually get married, right? I'm proud of those people for still doing it, even if they lived together beforehand. My problem is there are so many couples who live together beforehand and never make it there, right?
Mhm.
And so we have to make sure we're not making the exception the rule.
That's a good point, though. But let's keep it a buck. There's so many people that do it the other way and get married and still get divorced, right? Because who they live with all of a sudden flips the script, and who they live with is not who they thought was beforehand. I mean,
I said the goal is, right, to eventually get married. If they get divorced, life happens.
hold on,
But at
hold
least,
on,
But
hold
not
on.
everyone's goal is to get married. Some people are just cool living together.
and that's their prerogative. As a Christian, I'm going off of what God instructs. Okay. So when you're asking me, do I advise people living together beforehand? I'm just going to say no. But again, if someone can disagree and that's okay, it's based on their own personal preference, or if it works for them, that's fine. I'm just trying to do the best thing as instructed by God. So
Yo, but you said the goal is to get married. Isn't the goal to stay married? Because you're like, if they get divorced, not you specifically, right? Not you specifically, but I'm talking about, isn't the goal
that's implied.
married? Oh,
You take vows for better or for worse, in sickness and in health. And so automatically, I'm assuming that's for the long term. I don't think we have to spell out
well,
everything.
what if living together sets us up to last that long term?
Like I said, good for these couples. What I'm saying is, I'm not personally going to do it, but if you choose to, that is your prerogative. I just don't think it's the best choice in action. So,
But if it happens though.
that's between you and your God if it happens.
Got you.
Because
So what if you're okay? Because Rob, you talked about my conditions, right?
yeah.
And so one of my conditions is I feel if a couple is engaged, right, and then let's say, for example, they're engaged. The wedding is in 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
The lease for one of their places is about to expire. And they're like, okay, it expires in 3 months. We're getting married in nine. So the last 6 months, like we could save up that money and we'll just live together. They already have a plan to get married. Like it's on the table. It's in the works. For me, it's personally, it's like, okay, go ahead with it. But if it's like two people who are just meeting and they're dating and they're like, well, we're just going to move in together, not really sure where it's going, marriage isn't on the table, nothing much is on the table. I'm not for that because you're going to end up 20 years down the line, probably still just.
But is that guaranteed? Let me step a step back because I know in the church, even the scenario you highlighted, Simone, let's keep it a buck. You know you're gonna have pastors and people like, no, 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 you need to wait until the actual wedding. And my thought is like, yo, why would I like the date set, suits bought, everything is paid for. Why would I now try to find someplace else to stay for 2 months when I could live with my future bride, save us the coins and keep it set up? We
First
know
of all, why is it anybody's business? Like, why am I reporting to the pastor where I'm living? He ain't paying my rent.
you know somebody gonna talk. So let's keep it a buck. Somebody gonna notice that you didn't drive separate. You didn't drive separate to church. You showed up the same time together. Like somebody's gonna
So you can't pick me up? My boyfriend been picking me up for church for the past how many years? Or are you now parked outside where I live to watch and see what I'm doing? Because now you need a reason to go to your house.
Talk.
I just suck, Steve, because you know it somehow gets out. Well, let's say it doesn't. Regardless, if you were to share that fact, all right, I hear you, right? Say you were to share that fact, you're cool with it. You already know somebody's gonna come at you with judgment because it's like, well, that's not right. God didn't say that you should live with somebody before you get married.
And so he didn't say I shouldn't either. He said about fornication, right? So it wasn't an issue when we were hanging out. Like people have their own parameters. I think what others get caught up with is the idea of, oh, once you're living together, then you must be engaging in sex. And that's not necessarily true. People can live together and not engage in sex outside of marriage. Same way people can go on vacation. A couple can go on vacation and they're just going on vacation. There's nothing happening.
I'm with you. Go ahead, Robert. It's a conversation.
I definitely agree a lot with what Simone said. I think that people automatically, their minds go to you're sinning if you're living together, right? I guess for me, it would be what expectations do we now have on each other if we're living together and we're not married? Am I doing laundry? Am I cooking and cleaning? Am I doing things that you would traditionally see in a marriage, but are we getting these things before the marriage? I think that's more so my issue. It's just like, I don't want anything to replicate the idea of marriage and we're not actually married. But that's my personal preference. I see you giving me faces, Rob. I'm just saying this is for me.
You're safe. You're safe for your personal preference. I'm trying to understand it because I think there's some makes sense to it, but I want to make sure I understand. Anything that looks like what you would do during a marriage, you're just saying I'm not doing that before I get the ring.
No, I'm not saying. Okay, listen. Okay, let me further clarify.
I want to make sure.
I think people are gonna take that and just completely run off to the eastern sky with it. What I'm saying is, it's just the whole routine of, okay, we see couples who they live together before they get married, right? And typically, please do not gaslight or deny, but we typically see women are the ones cooking and cleaning and doing the laundry and doing the this and the household chores. And if they have kids, they're rearing the kids. And to me, I just feel like, okay, but that's not ideal for me, personally speaking. I'd rather it have a name to it, like I'm this person's wife, and therefore it is now okay to be doing all these things.
So hold up,
and vice versa.
Those things are okay. The things that you described are okay if there is a title attached to it.
So is it not okay because we could be doing all these things for Tom, Joe, Harry, and all these people that are just our boyfriends?
Because there's a nuance thing there. That's why I said I'll hear you on the idea of there are certain things that you feel, right, should only be ascribe to the title of wife, which I hear you on that. I'm not even gonna get to the nitty gritty about, what those things are. But some of the things you described are like, if it's wrong that she's doing all those things when they're not married, shouldn't that also be wrong if they're doing all those things when she is married?
You're trying to get me in a corner and it's not working.
Now you put yourself in a corner with
no, I didn't put myself in any corner because I never said it was wrong. I said under those pretenses, I think it's wrong. That's what I'm trying to say.
If you're dating someone, you don't cook dinner every once in a while?
But I'm not staying the night. I'm going home to my house.
Really? It's winter. It's cold outside. You really should stay because the danger's cold.
Well, then I should have checked the weather beforehand. So.
I'm dead.
But now you're here. Now you're here.
But I wouldn't be in that situation. I'm speaking for me. This is what you people are not hearing.
You're right. So let me keep it.
So sorry. Wait. So real case scenarios don't happen. So, like what 4 or 5 years ago in Maryland, a lot of people got stuck at people's places once it started to snow from 7 p.m. one night, and the next day it just kept snowing. Like no one could go anywhere. So realistically, bad weather happens, whatever. So you're telling me if there's some case where you have to stay the night with somebody that is your significant other, you're telling me that you're gonna find some way to leave. Like,
yeah, she's swimming to the snow.
This is the funny thing. This is the funny thing about what you guys are saying. This is not even this is not even what I was discussing at first. I'm saying that, right? For a woman or a man to be doing all these chores and having all these responsibilities on a daily, nightly, and daily basis, that for me is a problem. Once in a while, cool, that's fine. But if it's done consistently, where it's just like we're playing house, I have a problem with that.
So let me build on that. So all jokes aside, let me build on that. That's actually the argument for some people living with somebody ahead of time, because divvying up of chores is a major. And I'm saying this from somebody now legally shacked up, right? Divvying up of chores is a major thing, and people will do things on. Okay, I'm not trying to get somebody. I'll tell you about exes who we would get together, right? And I've lived with somebody before I was married. Yes, like life happens. I grow as a Christian. When we were dating living apart, I mean, I got dinner frequently when I came by. I cooked things, she would do certain things when I came by. If we would have extended weekends, things were like looked a certain way. We started living together. When I tell you I got not an okie doke, but it was just a different story, right? And a completely different story that made me consider, if I had this data beforehand, would I have chosen to be with that person? And I think that relationship ended. I wasn't mature. I shouldn't even have been in that, right? So let me be honest about that. Everybody watching, that wasn't something I should have been a part of. But let's talk about actual marriage now. There are people that will do one thing and act a certain way, because a Facebook post said this, act a certain way before you get married, and then they get married to you. And I'm gonna speak for women. I'm gonna try my best. The guy who he's changing your oil, right? You dating, he got your oil changed every time, right? Everything you need, he got you. Y'all get married, you see him, you wake up to him on the couch, you go to sleep with him on the couch. You left the house, he was one place, you come back, he was one place. What if you had known that before you got married?
I don't get the question.
So what would you do if you got the okie doke? Like, you're meeting dude, you're hanging out, and
he's different when we finally get married? Is that what? And
then you get married, and he's not the same person. You go by, and the place is always clean. Clothes always seem to be put away. The bathroom is clean. As a female, the toilet seat is down, right? But then now you get married and you realize the cap of the toothpaste is off. His drawers are left on the floor.
Sorry. Let me elaborate a little bit. So there is a mad dash for about 80 to 90% of men before their significant other comes over. If they aren't clean already, to clean literally top to bottom the entire place. And the picture you see when you come over as a woman, and 2 days after you've left, if you haven't been there, it's
Speak for yourself, Dylan. I was a clean man. Speak for yourself.
No. Don't get me wrong. you can be clean, but I'm saying like the carpet is vacuumed an hour before you get there. The dishes, no dishes in the sink, no nothing. Like it's like, you've been doing this, you've been cleaning all day, like, trying to make it look all, nice for your woman. Like realistically, we put on, a sort of, we want to make sure that a woman comes over and she thinks that our place is, up to standard and whatnot. Like we want to make sure that we're wearing good cologne, whatever. So when you get married and you're living together for the first time, I feel like you're now seeing some things you haven't seen before, realistically, because you didn't test it out before.
But how long are you going to be doing that? If you're dating somebody for 2 years, you're doing that mad dash for the whole time?
Exactly.
Or you're doing that like
Simone, there are some men that don't know women have weaves on until they get married. So
well, who told you not to touch her? That's another topic. Who told you not to touch her?
Talk about it.
Yeah. But my thing is like, you can't hide who you are for very long. It's gonna come out.
Isn't that hiding who you are?
Excuse me. It's going to come out eventually. Usually it comes out after 3 months. So this mad dash stuff, cool. For the first 3 months, that's probably going to happen. But after 4th, 5th, 6th months, I'm going to really see who you are.
I'm calling you
out. If I don't, then you have blinders on.
I'm calling you out. Women won't pass gas until 6 years into the marriage. Women won't take off their hair until 6 years after the marriage. Whoa. You don't even know that shorty's face got a blemish on it.
You see me with blue hair one day and long black hair the next day, that's your fault that you don't know it's a wig.
What if I want to trust in you? But so I think the root of our point, Araba, is that there are things in dating that you can hide. And I use that word loosely, not intentionally, but you may hide because you just don't see that person all the time. Like there are things my wife sees about me now because she lives like, if I wake up, like what if I'm the type of person, for example, right, that is an excessive snorer? I'm gonna think something realistic. So for some people, that's okay, right? They're willing to do for better and worse, and that's okay. What if there's somebody else who actually would have really legitimately not have married somebody if they had known that, but you don't find that out until you get married? What do you do then?
Going on vacation.
Depending on the Christian. Go ahead, Rob. You can interrupt me. It's fine.
So that's a good
hold on, Dylan. Rob. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So here's my thing. We're saying all this. What if they are really a vegetarian when I thought they ate meat? What if they're really a this when I thought they did this? Do you people not know God? Can you not call him to intervene? Or can you not call on the way maker for him
right
to
now.
Situation?
Serious
right I don't understand.
You're not serious. Goodbye.
She said at 3 a.m. when you're tired and you don't want to leave your man's house, and he says, "Baby, I got a shirt for you." You're saying you're gonna call on God at that time. Is that?
That's literally not what I'm saying. Okay. What I'm saying is, if there's a situation where you're seeing something in a person that you never saw before, knowing God as the waymaker he is, right? There's no reason why you cannot consult him to help him intervene in that situation. Whether it's God help me to love this person through the ugly and the good times, or God, please, I cannot deal with this, make a way. Whether it's speak to this person's heart. Well, I'm being very serious.
I know. That's not my I'm thinking to myself though, if we stepped away from something I think is real. The biggest thing, at least in my understanding, y'all help me out. Y'all grew up in this particular faith and denomination. The biggest thing when people preach about you not living with somebody is because they automatically assume you're gonna have sex. But my thing is, what if that's off the table? What if you can be trusted with living with somebody and not have intercourse and to remain spiritually pure? Isn't there some validity, right? Because you make sure that you want to know somebody's finances beforehand, right? Like that's not an issue. You want to know somebody's like work habits. That's not an issue. So wouldn't it also be beneficial to learn about somebody's living habits? I mean, because what if somebody's a legit slob by your definition? Let me be clear, by your definition, and they're okay with it. I might actually argue it's wrong for me to want to pray that change out of them because they're okay with it. And if I had known, it might have been like, all right, now we cool, because you might want to find somebody on your slobby level. I use that word based on my, personal interpretation. So my thing is, isn't there some benefit potentially to living with somebody beforehand?
I also feel like, can we ask certain questions as well? Like, are these some of the things that you're not speaking to the person with?
But it doesn't mean you're gonna get an honest answer. So I'll go back. Like I said, if the couple has decided they're getting married, they've reached that point, certain conversations can be had, but that doesn't mean you're gonna get truth, which is a whole other issue. Because the person's lying to you and you're about to marry them, that's a whole other issue. But um this idea of not shacking up, and it's based, I think, solely around sex. I think if
For some
sex
people.
wasn't the issue, like, people wouldn't be so caught, certain individuals wouldn't be so caught up on the shacking up part. My thing is, like I said before, if they have a plan, cool. But if you're just, there are some people who live with everybody they date, right? And then as soon as the relationship is done, right? We're talking about cuffing season. There are people looking for roommates right now. They looking for a winter home, right? They're like squirrels. They putting their nuts together. They're looking for a winter home. And then as soon as the weather gets nice again or whatever, then they move back to their mama's couch or the basement until it's time again. I'm not for that because there's no strategy to it. There's no goal in terms of this living together. That I'm not for. But if there is a purpose, if there's a goal and you're like, look, we're just gonna live together, then fine. Because the fact of the matter is, if two people are living together and they're having sex outside of marriage, when they weren't living together, they were having sex. So living together is not does not equate sex. It was happening before.
Mm.
Yeah,
Now they just got to roll over and get it. They don't got to get in their car and go down the street.
that's real. That's real.
I definitely don't disagree with you, Simone. But I think a lot of people who are kind of narrow-minded just base it off of the whole sex thing. You know, they think like, oh, once you live together, it's just fornication city. But I also think that it's important to consider all the other aspects of marriage as well, or of living together that, you know, can be detrimental to that relationship. So I think it's also important for us to have a balanced conversation, right? We've been talking about, oh, you know, what if you do live together and everything goes okay? What if you do live together and everything goes totally left? For example, beforehand, we were talking about the whole DeVal situation, him and his wife, right? So for those of you watching who don't know, sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to co-moderate.
Do what you gotta do. I'm here for it.
But so those who don't know, there's this couple named DeVal and Kadeem, right? A man and a woman who they have a podcast, and they were talking about their situation before they got married. The wife, I mean, I guess they were living together before they got married. They had kids. They had, I think, 2 kids at the time. And they were living together. No engagement, no marriage, no nothing. They were just boyfriend and girlfriend. The girlfriend, who is now the wife, she at the time asks, you know, what are we doing? Are we just going to continue to live together? My standard is that I prefer for us to get married, and I don't want to be engaged for longer than a year. So she stated her intention. The man, DeVal, on the other hand, then goes and says, this feels like pressure. After they've been living together for how many years, right? After they've done had children, after they've been doing what married people do, basically, now all of a sudden the word he's using is, I felt pressure to get married. And so my problem is, and I think we might show the video just to give people more context, is my problem is people do not talk about this enough. People do not talk about how, you know, the whole living together can tempt people to have children, do things that, you know, married couples would tend to do. And then when it's time to sign documents, when it's time to be married and make sure you're protected legally, financially, and all other assets, all of a sudden it's, oh, I don't understand that.
So people want an escape. People want an escape, right? So marriage means you cannot dip when you want to. And that's the reality for some people. They want qualities of a marriage. They want the home, they want somebody to come home to, and they don't mind the children, and they don't mind sharing the responsibilities and all of that. But when it comes down to let's make this legal, nah, I'm not ready for that, because at the end of the day, if I want to dip, I want to be able to dip. If I want to cheat, I want to be able to cheat freely and not have my conscience too bothered by it.
Do you think men do it more than women?
Whoa,
Like
whoa.
men are more afraid?
One layer at a time, by the way. And I actually wanted to, I would say I support that, right? Because my thing with the whole living, not that I am for one thing or another, let me be very clear about my stance right now. Just looking at this broadly, if you were to live with somebody, what is the goal? Like, I think with dating, as we talk about here on Flow, I encourage a sense of intentionality, right? To your point about Homeboy, I think when she asked the question, she called out his intention, right? What were your, I think you said it, right? And the thing is like, what's your intention? Because if we just doing this to do this, then you're right. There's a lot of ambiguity there. There's a lot of lack of security for both parties and what can happen. As opposed to, if we dating and I'm like, yo, it's been 2 years, right? We've talked about getting engaged, but to afford a marriage, because we don't got rich parents, right? We can live in one place and, we can save some extra coins for the wedding. The intent is still to get married, but now we can live together to save coins. I think there's some benefit to that. But we also need to be mindful. I'm gonna hit you with the truth. There's also be mindful if you do that and things fall apart, right? There's more that you've been exposed to that both parties need to be intentional about realizing. That's my thought on that.
Your last point is important because a lot of people, it was brought up before that, what if the two are very intentional about getting married and they're not fornicating or whatever? What if things go wrong up into the wedding day? Someone's just like, I don't want to do this anymore. So to me, you're most protected when you finally sign that marriage license.
What protects you though? My thing is with the living together, isn't the same emotional hurt going to be there if we were separate and went up to the wedding day and we said, not going to do it? Like what is living together?
I'm not saying no one's denying that. I don't think the level of emotional hurt to me is matters, right? I think what to me matters is we at least got up to this point because we were putting so much energy into this. We did this because we wanted to get married and we didn't get married. Wow, what was all of this for? So that's my issue. Because if you're saying how, we intend to get married anyway, then let's just move in together. You don't get married. So then what was the point of doing it? To just live together? I can understand that. If it was just to live together, that's fine. But if you're saying that eventually we're going to get married and you don't, it's kind of just like, well.
Hold up. I was very clear. I said, if you're going to move in, there should be a tension behind it. And for me, I look at financial. So I put it on Facebook for all y'all to know. And with this, considering the pressures and everything, one of the things that people talked about was the financial side of things. Like it is like, think about us as young adults right now in this age right now. Unless you racking up 6 figures, you barely living comfortable, even high 5 figures, right? Like you can making 80 G's and depending on where you live, you're still just getting by. So you find somebody else making 80 G's, y'all can pull that money together and pay for this one of these ridiculous DC apartments in my area, right? And be okay to put aside bread for the marriage. I think that's a purpose with the intention of getting married. And if you were to break up, it'd be just as bad if we were separate, struggling together and trying to save coins and we got divorced. So that's my thing about being very clear about if there's a purpose. But if you're doing it just to do it, then be honest that you're doing it just to do it.
Okay.
Dylan, you being real quiet, man. What's up?
Sheesh. No, I mean, you guys are going at it really hard there. Now I was hoping we could play the video because there was a lot more that he said and she said there that I feel like when he said pressure, I think he used sort of the wrong word, but it is still sort of pressure in a sense. Because realistically it's an ultimatum because I believe they were living together already and she said, listen, I don't want to be engaged longer than a year. I don't want to live with you any longer if we are not getting married. I understand your points on that. But one, should there be a time limit on engagement, right? And then 2, is an ultimatum not pressure?
So, can I answer?
Go ahead.
Listen to me. When someone states their standard and their intention,
Listen to
it's only pressure if you don't align with it. Simple. If you don't want to do it, you're going to view it as pressure, right? And so she says, listen, I cannot do this shacking up thing anymore. I would like to get married. What about you? If that's pressure, you don't want to get married. Simple. It's only pressure if she kept barging it into his head. Hey, when are we going to get married? Hey, I want to get married. At this
I didn't know she didn't do that.
She didn't say that. She said it once, right?
He didn't say it either. And even if she did keep saying it, it's still his decision.
Thank you. It's still his decision. So at this point, he had a choice. Oh, she just told me this. I kind of feel pressured. I'm not really into this. So he could have communicated that to her or left. Simple. But this whole, it's pressure, to me, that's unfair, because so then we're not allowed to state what we want out of relationships, especially if I have your children, if I'm living with you, if I'm doing things that all a wife should do, then why is that pressure?
So you gonna answer the
He ain't
second
want to
question?
settle down.
That's my opinion.
You were gonna answer the second question? No?
The second question.
I feel like I asked 2 questions. Now I forgot.
Yeah, I think you did.
That's the political okie doke. She got you. Look at you. Can't even defend yourself now. It's okay.
No. I definitely asked 2 questions, but I mean that's fine. So in response to that, right? It's only pressure if you don't agree with it, right? Okay, well, how about this, right? That's why I asked about the time limit. Second question. I don't want to be engaged for longer than a year. A lot of women say this, right? And realistically, right? When you've been dating, I don't care how long you've been dating per se, engagement is a whole nother step in that process, right? That's where you probably want to, really figure out if this is for you. You don't want to get cold.
Wait.
I mean, realistically.
If you're waiting till you're engaged to figure out if you want to marry someone, you are already going down the wrong road.
Come on, Dylan. Yo, I was with you.
All right. So when I say that, that's when people usually start doing marriage counseling and stuff like that. Not a lot of folks really do that before they're engaged. I know some people, right? No, there are some people who.
Let me highlight. You should definitely do that. Save your.
You should. It'd be a good idea.
On that ring before you.
Because she may not give it back to you if it doesn't work out.
Well,
thank you.
Oh, good.
I'm just saying.
Yes. Right, but some people really, I think, when you get engaged, it's a whole new level. I think mentally, everything. And yes, all right, maybe you have made up in your mind you want to be with that person, and that's why you said yes to the engagement. That's why the guy proposed, right? Cool. But it is still a brand new territory, right? That's why you can't go from dating to married just like that. It doesn't work, right? So I feel like 1 year it's 1 year. 1 year is not enough.
To you.
First of all, 1 year is not enough.
To you.
And on top of that, should there even be a time limit on it? That was my second question.
So you want to be engaged for 5 years?
I gotta say, Dylan, I'm gonna jump on the other end of this. Intentionality is my name in the game. Number 1, please do pre-engagement counseling, because men, depending on the lovely woman that you decide to court, or in 2020, women, depending on the lovely man that you allow to court you, right? There's going to be a certain level of expectation about what that courtship looks like, particularly during the engagement period, and what a ring looks like should you do it. There's coins invested and there's feelings invested in that process. Know what you're investing in and be sure that you want to do so. That is number 1. Number 2, the engagement period is not layover, right? And even every layover has a specific amount of time between your final destination. And I think some of us treat layovers like the new move. Right now, matter of fact, I'm gonna stay in Seattle. I know I'm really trying to go to San Diego, but I'm just gonna chill in Seattle right now. It's nice. I like it. That creates issues and that creates complacency. So my thing is, I absolutely believe that engagement should have a time limit on it, and it should be strictly about your ability to complete the wedding that you would like. Like, that is the only criteria for engagement, because back in the day, engagement was really just a formal whatever to the world, and then you got married not no year later, 6 years later. It was within a shorter length of time than it is now. Now, because it's an industry that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we all want the extravagant Instagram trend-setting wedding, we trying to drop that. But like, You can get engaged today and get married tomorrow at the courthouse if that's for you. Because if your point of engaging was to get married. So my thing is there should absolutely be a timeline, and it should be reasonable as your ability to achieve the wedding that you want, and for no other reason.
And should it be a year?
Didn't you?
Should be reasonable based on the wedding of your expectation.
But okay, but should it be a year? I'm just saying.
Didn't you just hear him say?
With a year.
Did you not hear him say?
For
some people, in a year, they can afford to pay for a wedding.
It's in 1 year. I'm just saying. For
some people, it's a year. For some people, it's 6 months. Like Rob said, there's been people who have done the courthouse thing within a month, and then they say, and next year on our year anniversary, we're gonna have this big wedding, the whole party. So it depends.
It depends, right?
It can be a year. I have a feeling she gave that ultimatum because they were already living together, and she probably felt if she had just said, I want to be engaged, he would feel, okay, if I propose to her, then thou shut her up. Ooh. And then they'd be engaged for another however long.
Right.
Yo, there's lots going on in the chat. I'm trying to see if I can bring some things in here. So, and it comes to the time limit, there is a consensus that there should absolutely be a time limit on engagement. That's what I'm seeing right now in the chat, supported by at Victor and Simone Marcel. Absolutely should be a timetable on that. Kristen Bain, you should be a time limit on engagement. If I'm dating you for 5 years, you already have 3 years to decide if you want to put up a ring on and wipe it up. Like 5 years though, that's a lot. Anyway, on to the story. Also, J Squared TV says the time limit for engagement period is based on what the two individuals agree upon, not a social time period. Also, J Squared says engagement isn't the time to determine if marriage is the correct course.
Correct.
But somebody dropped something in my spirit based on that. Not my spirit, but they brought something to my attention about the Instagram video that you posted about. How do you address the change in expectations, particularly, Robert, you kind of alluded to it, when people go from being engaged and married or dating to married? I believe in the video, the gentleman felt that he was not being met sexually as much when he was being married as when they were separated. And I want to speak, huh?
He needs to grow up.
Well, hold on. Okay, maybe that's true. But let me speak to some men that I know of, right? Some non-Christian persons or non-fully saved persons who may be engaging in regular, healthy sexual activities per their determination, right? Before they get married. Then they get married, and all of a sudden, things dry up, for lack of a better word. Yo, go ahead. Don't need to raise your hand. Go ahead. Like, how do we address that?
My problem with what DeVal said in the video, I really wish we could play it because I could care less to repeat what he said.
I did drop it in the chat for those who have the space to, in YouTube. It's in YouTube.
Okay, thank you. He's over here saying, why do you press monogamy if you cannot keep up sexually with your partner? Disregarding the fact that this woman has 3 kids, career, this, that, the third. It's not going to be the same as when you two were teenagers. That's just a realistic thing. I've talked to so many married couples who say the same thing. They're just like, marriage is not all roses and flowers. Sometimes you're tired. Sometimes work gets to you. Some couples, that's the total opposite. They have all the time in the world. But I think for him to not contextualize it and take in outside factors into consideration is childish to me. Like, at the end of the day, things happen, right? And you're not always gonna be up for that, right? This is what I'm hearing from some of my friends that are married. And so my whole thing is just like contextualize the situation and be understanding of the fact that she's a mom with 3 kids. She's most likely with these kids most of the time because he does a lot of he's in a lot of shows. He does a lot of acting. I watch a lot of his work. And so this person is with the children more. She's probably more tired. She's probably having to do all the household chores if they don't have maids, because they probably do have some type of money. But I just feel like it's inconsiderate to just like expect so much of a person when conditions do change. Things do change. We're not going to stay the same throughout lifetime, and that's fine.
So
You took a vow knowing that for better or for worse, there's going to be worse. It's not always going to be better. So
doesn't that support the argument then of getting as much information pre-vow so that you can determine what you are willing to commit to during the vow?
But I have a question, and I don't know if there's a longer, I think you guys said there's a longer clip. And I'm just wondering if he says that she's not satisfying him sexually, she's not meeting his sexual needs. What does that compare to pre-marriage? For example, if they were having sex 3 times a week before they got married, and he now feels because they're married, they should be having it 5 times a week, but they're having it 3 times a week like they've always been doing. Is he being unrealistic? Nothing technically then changed. It's been the same 3 times a week as always been. But now he has a different expectation because they're married.
I mean, we can't really say because they didn't really mention that. They didn't share that with us. From what I can gather, though, I know that he did say that she pushed monogamy on him per se or whatever. And that part I don't necessarily agree with, because I mean, like, if you're getting to a relationship, you kind of agreed to that already from both sides. But at the same time, right, who's the first person that usually pushes for monogamy? A man or a woman? And that's the question.
It depends.
Depends. So
depends on the person.
On average, right? Do men or women push for monogamy first if they're dating or if they're talking?
I would say women. Like, if I was forced to answer this question, which you're not, but I would lean towards women.
I don't know. I don't work
with the explicit conversation.
I don't do polls and surveys.
What about you, Robert?
You want to Google the statistics?
That's fine with me. I want to know your personal thought on that. What you think it is before knowing the official Google.
Whoever God has ordained to want to be in a monogamous relationship.
Yo, like nothing.
What happened is there's some people who go into marriage and they have this unrealistic expectation, and that's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
You were fine before with going by your girl and she, 2 days a week, and she would cook and she works and she has an entire life. But now that you're married, you expect dinner on the table every night. You've never verbalized this, right?
How do we know that? How do we know that?
I'm speaking generally. Like, for some people, they feel, oh, now that I'm married, I'm supposed to get these things. But you've never said it to the person before. There was never a conversation that's like, look, my sex drive is here, and I'm gonna want sex 5 days a week. Just now that you're married, you're supposed to be getting this. Every night you roll over and touch somebody's face, they roll over again and give you their back, and you vex because you never decide to open up your mouth and say what it is you wanted. Like, open your mouth, say what you want. Too many people have thoughts in their minds that they think others have ESP or whatever the heck it's called, and they're gonna figure it out. And that's why you have grown folks now in these foolishness that's supposed to be marriage, but it's really not, because people are just here playing house, and then they get upset and they get divorced. But anyways, I'm stepping down.
But that's what I'm saying. How would you know what? Let's say you're actually, doing the right thing. You're not having sex before marriage, this and the fourth, on the Christian standard, right? And you don't know what your sex drive is. Maybe you have thoughts and urges, most likely, yes, that. True. But you haven't had sex before. And not only that, but you haven't had sex regularly before, right? You don't know a pattern. Neither of you do. Let's say they're both virgins, right? Let's say it's a perfect world. You get into marriage, right? One of the things that she said, if I had known what I knew at 27 when we got married, now I probably would have made a different decision.
I honestly think
she didn't know. She didn't know. Of course, you don't know the future, but she didn't know or ask the question, what's your sex drive like? What's like, even if they were having sex, right? She didn't think about it. I'm just saying.
That's why premarital education becomes important, because now you have someone that can provide you with the verbiage that is necessary to have certain conversations. Because certain people, there are things, a lot of us, right, and being inclusive in this, a lot of us tolerate certain things just to be with someone. And in that tolerating, it sometimes leads to marriage, which leads to destruction. Other times, the light bulb goes off early enough that we are able to get out of the situation before too many people are damaged. And when I say too many people, meaning you're married, there's children, and there are other repercussions. But a lot of people live in this bubble, and I'm seeing it happen so often now, especially in our age group, where they're living in this bubble. They're tolerating certain things because I don't want to be single. It's hard out here. I have somebody. Do you see the pickings are slim? I ain't trying to do this again. So
Not
I'm
good for
just
man to
be
be
with
alone.
this person.
Hold up. Araba had a thought too, by the way. I hope I still remember.
I was just trying to ask, where are we going with the question, Dylan? Like, what did you want to get out of it?
What with which question?
The one that we're talking about now.
I think we veered off a bit. The question I was asking
So I'm confused.
the question I was asking was if they had never had sex before, right? Because what Simone was leading to was that, okay, well, if you know your sex drive is here, be vocal about it, talk about it, communicate, which a lot of men do.
But Dylan, even in your scenario though, real quick, sorry to interject you on purpose, like in your scenario, that's why you have like developing a habit of conversation. Like my thing with your point is, if in the perfect world of their birth virgins, great, because now you can develop what that habit should be like. If you have a healthy habit of conversation, you know, realizing that, yo, baby, you know, I'm kind of feeling it this morning. I'm not. Okay. And through dialogue, you realize, man, he has a healthier appetite than I do. But if I'm in it, to Araba's point, now I'm in it to win it. I'm in it to stay long term. I'm pointing on Araba on my screen, y'all. In it to stay long term. Then we're gonna have to figure something out, because as partners, and even in the Bible says, is we committed to pleasing each other. Like we committed that it's not just my body, right? And I'm speaking for a man. It's not my body to do what I want with. It's her body. So if she has a healthier appetite than me, then yeah, that's a biblical principle, Robert.
You guys make marriage sound horrible.
What?
Oh.
Do you guys just roll over sometimes? Is that what we're saying here?
Roll over.
I'm saying that
if that's marriage, I don't. Let me stop.
I'm somebody in the chat. I think it was at Karen LeBron said that one. She talked about the balance of child rearing. Like I also agree that it's unfair for men to have an expectation, which happens during early pregnancy, of their wives to commit to them physically, while they do not provide the same level of investment for the child. I'm gonna be the first one to hold any dude accountable. Like, nah, chill with that, dog. Like, you don't know what it's like. And there are a lot of women out here who have, who result in having postpartum depression, other things, hormone changes that is difficult on them. That being, with that same mentality, is the same thing sexually. Like, we signed up to serve each other, and the service goes both ways. And if you're not ready to do that, then you shouldn't invest in that process. That's my thought, and which is why I try to loop this back to cuffing season, shacking up. I believe, and I receive the conversation and point for some people who feel like there's benefit to moving or living with somebody ahead of time to expose the things that are not otherwise exposed, even with the appropriate question. Because, for example, you may not know, like, what if you've always lived alone? You may not know what your certain habits are because you've always had you or your parents, right? You may not know what is a pet peeve for you, for example, with living with somebody until you do. And so I think there is things that could be said that would help me understand why that perspective is reasonable. Not saying I support it. I'm just saying there are things that could be said that make that reasonable.
I somewhat agree with you, somewhat agree. I more so think that it shouldn't be purposeful. It sometimes just ends up happening just because of a scenario, right? Corona happened, right? One person lost their job and the other person didn't. And they're both in the same state, far from family. You know what I mean? What if you're in a whole different country, whatever, and you really can't go back? You can't afford to go back, right? you should, I mean, I would think that you and your boyfriend, whatever, would move in together just until he gets back on his feet. How long would that take? Not sure. That was on Insecure, and you know that whole thing with Issa and Lawrence. I am going to start that conversation right now, because Lawrence was right in all the things that he has done on Insecure. That's all I'm gonna say. Team Lawrence out here, but realistically, sometimes things just happen, and if you end up living with this person, it's not the best idea for a super long-term decision, but I mean sometimes it happens. I think realistically,
is it grounds for leaving someone, like if they say, I'm not marrying you unless I live with you first?
Oh, I don't. What's that now? I'm gonna support a Robert side to that, Simone. What's their reason? Like, why are you asking me to live with you?
Because they feel like you're not, as we've been saying, you're not going to know certain things. You're not going to, I don't want to get the okey doke.
Okay, so is there a time limit? So like if we say, all right, cool, I'm gonna do that. If you don't know after, are we saying we'll live for 6 months and then we're gonna get married? Because how long is it gonna take you to figure it out? Huh?
There's no engagement or anything.
We need a plan, because my thing is, how long does it take for you to figure it out? Like why do you want to live with me if the end goal isn't, like, my thing is, if the end goal isn't marriage, and first of all, living with somebody before engagement to me is extra sticky. Like that is, there's so many tossed up in the air.
But there's some people.
So my thought is like, say again.
No, I said there's some people who feel like that. They're like, I'm not engaging, I'm not marrying unless I live with a person first. Like there's many cultural things where, as a Jamaican, there's some men who feel they're not marrying the woman unless she has a child, because they want to know that she can reproduce, even though he could be the issue why there's no children. But anyways.
Go ahead, Robert.
I don't owe anybody anything if they're not my husband.
If they're not what?
If they're not my husband. So my whole thing is, if it's a deal breaker, bye. Okay. You're not my husband. So it's not by force that I have to live with you before I get married. Like, who are you to be making requests, serious requests like that? I can understand if you're just like, I need to see you get upset or at your angriest before I marry you, because you want to know if this person has anger issues, right? Or I need to see how you handled conflict, because you want to see if you can mediate while you're married to this person. But if you're saying I need to live with you to see, that's a whole different ballgame. And I just feel like if that's a deal breaker, and if you need to see if I can have kids before we get married, that's another thing. It's just like, I don't owe you my body. You're not my husband. Like, I am not an object that you could just toy around with just because. Oh, and so if I do have kids for you before we get married, what if you decide to change your mind? So now I have this kid and you don't want to get married anymore. It's just like, this is dangerous. This is a slippery slope. So if that's a deal breaker, there's billions of people in this world. I can replace you, and everyone is replaceable. So.
Wow,
I hear R&B songs being sung.
Cold-blooded.
Not cold-blooded. It's realistic. No one owes anyone anything. Period. And like, especially if you're not married, like, come on, man.
Isn't that an ultimatum now that he's giving?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
No, I'm saying, like, let's take that baby portion of it, right? They're going back earlier, don't talk about the ultimatum. And it's like, well, you need to have a baby for me first before I decide to marry you, or I must live with you before I'm willing to propose and get married to you. It's an ultimatum, right? To an extent. But what you're saying, Araba, is that the person still has a choice, right?
Yeah.
So like homeboy had the choice on whether or not he wanted to marry the girl. I don't know her name. Right? Going back to the clip when Dylan was saying that he didn't have a choice.
Yeah, Dylan was like, so this is what we were talking about, and I think it's important here. Do you feel that a person who says, man or woman, I'd like to make it equal, that they were forced into marriage, that there is ever a scenario where that is the result, like that is justified. Can anyone force another person into marriage? I've heard men say I was for, or even women both use the children. Men and women say, well, we had a child, so we were, marriage. We had to get married. Like, is there ever a scenario where you are forced to get married?
Yeah,
justified.
Yeah, I mean,
not justified, but yes, people feel forced, but I don't think they're justifiable reasons. It's still a choice.
If we're being real with this conversation, right? In almost any Adventist or Christian family, right? And as I've seen some really terrible.
Dylan, excuse me, hold up real quick. Everybody, in 3 minutes, we're about to kick off the overflow. So if you feel like this topic is something you want to chime in on, get ready to click the link in the chat. We'll let you in. Have your comment ready. You got 1 minute and 30 seconds. Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, I was just saying, so like I've seen a lot of sticky situations where someone's had a kid and the mother or the father will basically, string up this whole marriage, in 5 seconds and a wedding and this and the fourth, and try to make it seem like they got married before the baby came out and whatnot. And it's that happens a lot. Or they don't do it and they ended up getting like ostracized and kicked out the church. And that's like that's basically an ultimatum from like your family and your church in some respect.
But you still have a choice on whether or not you're gonna go through with it.
That's not you have a choice when someone has a gun loaded to your head, right? But it's not an easy one. Like that's like saying, am I gonna choose me and my baby over everyone I've ever known and grown up around? That's a choice. Yeah, of course. But look at Adam and Eve. They had a choice too, and look where we are right now. I'm just saying it's not easy. I mean, that's a big choice. Just saying.
Hearing Beyonce, I'm a whole mood vibe from Araba, every facial expression. So, come on, Araba, what's your thoughts? I know they're on there. What you got to say on it?
I don't know. I'm lost. I'm sorry. I heard. What's the question again? I don't know.
What led to you being lost? What was the trigger that made you like, this don't make sense?
Everything. I'm confused. So Dylan is saying that if a Dylan, what were you saying again? Like, what was the meat of what you were saying?
The meat of what I was saying. So if you sometimes would get pressured into marriage, right? Mm-hmm. Like almost forced into marriage by your family or your church. If you were to get like, let's say a woman gets pregnant, they kind of force them to get married, or they have the option of having the kid out of wedlock, and everyone's going to basically shun them and kick them out the family, kick them out the house.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
While you formulate that, everybody, it is 5:30. We're about to kick in the last quarter of this. I know the chat was lit, so the link is in the chat. We're about to run our overflow, so please feel free to click on the link and join us. We're going to continue the conversation only for a few minutes as we go forward. So let's run it. All right, everybody, this is the overflow. And ultimately today we came in and asked the question, should you shack up with somebody? And the wonderful president at Araba said, nah, negative, no go. Our lovely Sim Petty, also known as Simone, shared that there are conditions under which it may be beneficial. And Dylan said also the same thing. I, as a wonderful moderator, believe that there are arguments to be had on both sides of the issue. I'm also recognizing that I have a position in certain places that I need to be careful about what I say. So if you're interested in joining us in the overflow, please click on the link so we can talk about some things. Also, there was a comment in the chat from Amliv towards Dylan. Dylan, go ahead. You have some thoughts on it.
It wasn't towards me, but I really wanted to respond to that. So she was saying polygamy might solve the issue of men want, if a man has a higher sexual drive than a woman, or once they get into marriage, maybe that would solve that issue, which I mean, I guess it could, but I'm not an expert on polygamy, but I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on that. Would it solve the problem?
So everyone should be polygamous if they have a sex issue? Is that what the thing is?
Well, no, I'm saying would polygamy solve like this scenario? Like he was basically talking to his wife, said, hey, okay, well, you don't match me sexually, right? You don't match my sexuality.
So now we have to go to polygamy because the wife is not.
I'm not saying we have to. I'm saying would it solve the problem?
Why are we even talking about polygamy?
Because now he can have whatever she can do, he can get from someone else. But I don't share.
It's like
a Christian show.
I mean, they did it in the Bible, so I mean.
Ooh, hold on. Let's hold on that for a second. We got
some people on the overflow, man. Let's ask.
We got at Arthur Powell on the overflow. Arthur, if you can turn your there we go. What's your thoughts? You got a question? You got a minute. Minute 30 seconds to share what you got.
Okay, I feel like a robber because as soon as Dylan said like that one trigger sentence, that threw me off of like what I was actually gonna say. Because everything that's in the Bible, we should not be copying, especially in like the end of Genesis and Joseph's family, they was crazy. So just because it's in the Bible, that don't mean that we should just copy it. But anyway, okay, I feel like a robber because as soon as I thought someone was talking. Yeah, that threw me off. So I forgot like the original question.
I'm sorry, Arthur. I'm sorry.
All right, Arthur, we're gonna pause you there. We'll come back to you. We got Anderson. Anderson, you got a thought that you want to share? Minute 30 seconds.
Hold on. Man, it's a lot of great conversation. Araba, yo, I need you to cool off, son. Like, yo, it look like you want to get at a few people. Shacking up it has its benefits, has its pros and its cons. There are definitely issues there. It's just, I don't know. It's a tricky situation. It's a tricky thing. So, at the end of the day, it's all up to the individual.
Okay, so hearing you recognize that this conversation is not as simple as a yay or a nay for you, and that there are some pros and cons that need to be addressed that both individuals should really look at before doing it. I appreciate you coming on and sharing that thought. My man at Nick, what's going on? What's your thoughts? Minute 30 seconds.
It's me. So I have sorry, I can't show my face right now, but I'm on Araba's side in this. I think when we're talking, the whole topic is shacking up, and by definition, shacking up is being with someone intimately, living together. By definition, there's no going around it. Look it up. By definition, shacking up.
I've had some intimate conversations, and they were
no. I'm talking about by definition. We're not gonna make up our own definition, but by definition,
intimate conversation.
Speak, President Lexia. Speak.
No, but the whole topic is shacking up. So I feel like, as a Christian, like Araba said, if we're talking about shacking up, it's not a oh, if we should or if we shouldn't. It's clear we shouldn't, right? And then to put ourselves in temptation, that's actually foolish. But to Dylan's point, in terms of the monogamy thing, I really thought that was disturbing when Deval used monogamy as the vehicle to express his dissatisfaction with their sex life, right? Come straight to the point. Don't use monogamy, because if she came and say, I wanted monogamy, I want to have other partners, he's not for it. So it's not an option on both sides. So if it's not an option, it's just not an option. Right. If you are displeased with our sex life, say that you're displeased and let's figure it out, but don't disguise it in something else and try to repackage it to make you seem like something. My bad, my time's up. That's it.
She never asked that question, I'm just saying, but
he did.
Just saying.
He did. He asked the question.
No, I said she never asked the question if it was okay
because it wasn't an option.
If they went to polygamy, right?
It wasn't an option for her, and if it was an option for him, he should have stated it from the jump.
I don't think
you can't ask it after.
I don't think he would know from the jump. That's something you kind of get into marriage and learn.
No, you don't. What?
Your sex drive? I'm just sorry. Just like sex drive.
Oh no, I thought you were talking about monogamy. You said sex drive.
Nah. Sex drive.
They had 3 kids. He knew what his sex drive was. They had 3 kids.
Robert gets more animated with the right thing. It's like you guys said the right thing in the animation.
Like he knew what we're not talking about virgins. We're not talking about individuals who have never had intimacy with someone. At least 3 times they've had sex.
And
one
let's
for
be
each
honest,
kid. He knew what his sex drive was.
It don't usually happen one and done.
I'm just saying.
I know, I'm saying, but that's like when you say at least, it really is at least 3 because that's rare. It's rarely a one time it happens like that. It can. All right. At Arthur, did you get what you had to say yet? Go ahead, Robert.
To summarize, he knew what he was getting himself into when the intention was put on the table that I want to be married. It shouldn't take longer than a year. What are we doing? You could have said yes or no, period. That's where the conversation should end. It's all this pressure, it's all this, it's really not as great as we're trying to make it. You're a grown man. You know what it was. You had the option to walk away if you felt pressured. That's it.
The thing is, even though it didn't come up, like, even though she didn't know purpose, like, it wasn't purpose to be pressure when she gave him an ultimatum. That it wasn't supposed to be pressure, but at the same time, some people need that pressure. And like she was saying like that, they were shacking up. They were shacking up with the definition that Alexia gave. Okay,
which I have a response for. Anyway, okay.
They were shacking up according to the actual definition, and when they were shacking up, over a period of time, she was like, I don't want to keep shacking up with you and then not get married. You know what I'm saying? And so like that's when she was like, yo, like I need to know that it's like that it's real, that it's genuine. You know what I'm saying? But she didn't say nothing about like no wedding or anything like that. She said, like, I want to get married to you. Like, I feel like that's not like that's not like a wedding thing. That's just like a, like on paper, like have like a covenant, a commitment. So that doesn't require all that other, like, paying for it. And some people can't afford having a wedding, all that other stuff. No, some people like just go to the courthouse, get married, then like they have a wedding when they can afford to have a wedding. So I think that he just used the vehicle, just like Alexia was saying and Robert. He used the vehicle or the excuse of polygamy and the monogamy argument to justify his position on him felt like he was being attacked or him feeling like he was being pressured when he ought to have been pressured, but she wasn't even trying to pressure him anyway. So that's how I feel about it.
Let me give a response back to my favorite co-friend, my homeboy's wife at Alexia. I looked at the Merriam-Webster definition of shack up: to sleep or live together as unmarried sexual partners. And I want to be honest, I concede to that. I will also share what someone told me, that the English language as a language can all right, anyway. Let me not try to, because somebody gonna call me
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
For the Oxford.
Don't try it.
You're such a devil's advocate.
But let me go back though. Let me go back. So we talk about shacking up. We started as a point in the conversation, and by definition, I know I would probably say don't do it, right, because of the ramifications. But I do think there's an argument for living with somebody, right? If you can live with somebody without engaging in sexual intimacy before marriage, if there's a purpose and intention, I can hear an argument for that. Again, let me be clear. I'm not trying to say you should do it. I can hear an argument for living with somebody if you are to remain spiritually and sexually pure, if there's a purpose and intention after engagement. I can hear the argument for it. I can see it. You can make all your faces at Arthur. We can talk later. And to the conversation about polygamy and monogamy, I hear that, and I think it's also foolish. I think it's just a thing to be said. Anyway, we got hands, so let's go to Amliv. You got 1 minute, 30 seconds. If you don't got nothing, then we about to move on. You making that face. Okay. At Anderson, I think you had your hand up first. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
All right. Yo, chill. All right, give me 1 second.
Is that
Stop.
the goon at Danny?
Yo.
The terror. Don't tell him you don't negotiate with terrorists.
Okay, can I go?
So real quick, all right. So I have a problem with that whole podcast thing, right? And my biggest issue is, 3 kids later, right? And many years later, I guess that's when it clicked like, okay, I want more, right? At this point, this dude is comfortable. At this point, if this dude has not asked you to marry him yet, what makes you think he wants to get married? So, definitely his response was just, this is foolish. But at the same time, I gotta see, at things from, I'm looking at her like, I get laying down your standards and setting your standards, but 3 kids later, not after the first kid. You didn't say we're not going through this again, unless blah blah blah.
Ooh.
Or I would want to be married the next time we have another kid. That's bothersome to me. That's bothersome to me because by that time, after the first kid, if he didn't propose, you should have known he had no intention of proposing. But I mean, they're married now, so
Anderson, are you daring to bring attention to the woman's choice in this matter? That's dangerous,
Rob.
bro. That's get ahead.
Wait.
But yo, to Anderson, how many?
Wait,
No,
No. Don't be jumping the line,
Hey,
Dylan.
Robert had a hand up.
Don't jump the line,
How
Dylan.
many
I had my hand
commitments?
up.
Don't jump the line.
Ahead of
You
Robert.
him.
Listen, I
You
still
him.
got 30
Good.
seconds, I believe.
No.
Araba, I need you to jump in the freezer real quick and cool off. Right?
I had my hand up.
I know Robert, but she has a response. I think he kind of spoken to directly. Robert, would you like Alexia to go, or would you?
No, let Araba go. Let Araba go. I thought it was good. Go ahead, Araba.
Okay.
No offense.
I'm not disagreeing with Anderson. I agree. I feel as though sometimes as women, yeah, I agree, Rob. It's not a first, but I feel as though I can admit some women kind of allow too many things to happen before making certain standards and intentions known. Granted, my point is we're here now. And I'm now making my intentions and standards known, right? And so at this point, it's up to you as to whether we go further or not. She made her intentions known because she knew that she still wanted to be with this person, right? She wasn't going to leave him. She didn't want to leave him, right? So what she should have done is, even before the kids, should have made that intention known. She didn't. First kid happened, she didn't. Second kid happened, she didn't. Third kid happened, she's like, all right, man, I'm fooling myself. You're also fooling yourself. What are we doing, right? And so that's my response to that. Lexi could go ahead.
At Alexia,
real quick, can I respond to that?
And
I'll be done. I'll be done. Couple seconds. So I definitely agree with Araba. Now for this guy, my thing is, dude, after the first, second, third kid, after the second kid, like, why didn't you wife her up yet? I mean, where are you gonna go? What are you gonna do? You leave, you possibly child support. That's all your money. That's 2 kids. That's all your bread gone.
That's probably why
if you're doing married things and living the married life, why not just get married? What are you waiting on? So, for the fellas out there who are listening, like, yo, stop playing them games, man. It shouldn't even take you a year to know that you want to marry somebody. I'm gonna be real.
6 months.
Flag. There was a flag on that play. Anyway.
Okay, so one, just to clarify, they did get married before the kids came, but I also want to put in, because we're also speculating that there wasn't any conversation before this podcast. There was being married. I can guarantee you that there were conversations before this podcast. Some marriage is complicated. I'll leave it at that. But my actual point is, one of my thoughts when I watched the video was how young men are socialized when it comes on to sex, right? And how they are told that they can just have sex with anybody, however many people, throughout their whole adolescent years. So they can just, go from here to here to here. That's how they're told that, that's a man, be a man, so you can have sex whenever you want it, right? So it's supposed to be something, if I ask you for it now, then I should get it, right? So one, you don't know discipline when it comes on to sex. That's not how sex works. You don't know discipline. You don't know what it means to, delayed gratification. Life happens, things happens. If she has during the 9 months of a woman being pregnant, what's going to happen? You can't you're gonna have sex every single day like you used to? No. So you have to be realistic about these things, and the expectation that we had already had before we came into our marriages, and how are we going into our marriages with these expectations? Because they did say, if you watch the whole podcast, when before they got married, when they were in college, they were going at it like every day. These are their words, they were having sex like every day.
They
So,
were 19. They had
right,
energy.
exactly. So but he expects that. But what I'm saying is women have to be careful also, because when you start to put these standards and you don't have these conversation up, now he's coming in thinking this is what's supposed to happen. When they're bound, and I really do believe God put boundaries for a reason, but we think that we got it and we know what we're doing, so we can shack up together and we're gonna be safe. No temptation is gonna happen. We have to be realistic with who we are and understand that we don't know who we are all the time until we get into certain situations. So we don't know what our sex drive is gonna look like after 5 years, after 10 years, after 2.
That wasn't me. I know y'all people, somebody gonna look at me first, but it was not me. Ask Simone Walton, you got 1:30 on the clock. I'm gonna make sure people can see my hands.
I mean, no, all good points. So the whole shacking up thing, yeah, it's an individual decision, but there's a reason why, right? There are underlying principles why we shouldn't do certain things. So when, I know Simone was talking earlier about, right, fornication, right? There's a reason why God tells us not to go there, because then you don't have anything to measure against when you get married. So if the two people know they were going at it like wild rabbits, right? College, not getting, pre-marriage, of course you're coming into the marriage with certain expectations. But now, on top of everything, marriage is so much more than sex, right? There's life that happens, your body changes, a whole variety of things can happen, right? And then, Dylan, I want to respond to you about this monogamy thing, right?
Get him, Simone.
And even touching on something Alexia said, it's interesting how society socializes boys and girls, right? If as a girl, I come into a relationship, we're in a relationship, Dylan, right? And we're talking about exclusivity. And I'm like, you know what? No, I don't want to be monogamous. I want to be polygamous. Please. Most dudes would run screaming. Most dudes would be like, I'm sorry, what? What you mean?
I want to argue with someone. I know I don't.
You want to be with other dudes? You don't only want to.
Don't do it.
The majority of men would not like that. So therefore, it should not just be like, oh, well, it's expected that men are somehow, not able to be monogamous. That does not fly. Like everybody, you have to make choices. And this is why you have to talk about things up front. This is why I highly endorse relationship counseling. You got to know who you're getting involved with, because people have had all kinds of lives and situations before you get with them, and they're bringing their mess to your life. And realize that one day, especially for people who are having children and having, all these babies, and for these men that are doing this stuff, realize that one day your child is going to be somebody's spouse. You as the in-law, right? You are going to be blamed for the mess that how your child was raised up, because it really is your fault how you socialize them. So, no, and then these men about pressure. It's not pressure. We as women, however, what I will say, ladies, to all my ladies out there.
Thank you, Simone. I needed a little balance to this. Okay.
Those on the panel, to my late, thank you, Simone and Araba, for holding it down, girl. I love your passion. Let me tell you something. We as women need to set our expectations from the beginning early. If you think it's pressure, then you need to go stepping. I'm not dating anybody for 3 years. I'm not dating you for 3 years. I'm not dating you for 5 years. I'm not doing none of that. And then after you make the decision freely to ask me to marry you, we're not going to be engaged for infinity, right? No, because lots of things can happen, and you're not just going to come and we're not just going to live together and, oh, well, it's to save money, babe. No. The plan. There's an end date. There's an expiration date. And so either you meet those parameters or you find excellence elsewhere. because I'm certainly gonna find excellence elsewhere. So feel free to talk to my husband. He's known me for a lot of years. Okay.
We had to give grace to Asimone Walton, first time speaking. Dylan, before I let you go, at Amliv, did you have anything that you want to throw in? You got a minute, 30 seconds. Here's your time, because we're wrapping up.
Okay, so even though my father had gotten married without shacking up with his wife, right? He, after 18 years, he still went back to his polygamous relationship. And the wife knew this before he married her. She said, I'm not marrying you until you give up those relationships. And 15 years into their relationship, he decides he want to go back to that lifestyle. So to me, people already tell you who they are before it even happens.
That is very true. Wow, she cut it up short. So Dylan, you get a minute, 30 seconds, and then we're going to move into the connection and wrap this up.
So just to Simone's point, I know she just left or something, but in my almost 30 years of being a male, and my experience is being a man, right? I think I probably have more of a say to say what men would think if a woman says, I want to be polyamorous. That's the same thing as polygamy, right? Same thing, right? Okay, but I want to be polygamous.
Simone, go.
Right? I think realistically, we don't. When it comes to if a guy is saying I don't want to necessarily be in a relationship, and he hasn't asked her that question, and she comes at first, and she's like, "Listen, I think it's okay for us to talk to other people." And a lot of people have done that. A lot of people have come to the realization that they're not ready to settle down and talk to each other and be on a monogamous relationship level. And that's okay. This is in this world, a lot of different people want different things. In this case, I think if a woman really came out, and I don't think a lot of women would in this day and age, but if a woman came out and said, honestly, I want to talk to different people, but I'm feeling you as well, we could do whatever. I think some guys would jump at that opportunity if they really got that from them. And a lot of people already do that.
Let's not make the exception the rule.
Okay.
Two, three people who would do that and applying it to the general population.
Two or
Most
three
of
people
would be like, no.
So you're saying there's
you know how territorial men can be.
How territorial can a wife be?
Let's be real.
What? How territorial can a wife?
Your manhood would not allow you your girl to be claimed by Bob, Harry, George, and the rest of them.
She belongs to the streets. It's okay.
So you want a woman that belongs to the streets? Stop playing games.
I'm just saying.
Anyway, had to take that liberty right there because it was getting hot and fiery. I want to thank all of my panelists, every single one of them, everybody who jumped on the overflow for joining us. And let's be real, right? First of all, I want to acknowledge at Alexia, the face of Nick Mitchell, because she used my strategy against me. She used the definition of a word to battle me, and I can't stand that she did that. I cannot, but I shout out to her. So what's the connection, right? This is where we're at right now. What's the connection? I want to turn everybody to 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. As a start, right? It says, for our appeal does not arise from deceit or ulterior motives, nor are we here trying to trick you. On the contrary, we speak as those approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel. We are not trying to please people, but God who tests our hearts. And I also want to hit you out with another scripture that is in Psalms. The next scripture, please, and I'll tie the point in together. Psalms 19:12. Who can discern his errors? Declare me innocent from hidden faults. We talked about this. At the root of all this is intentionality, right? And I think Asimone Walton really led us there. As a Christian, you are charged with holding the message of the gospel, right? You're charged with that responsibility. And as much as I tried to jab at Adaraba, she was clear. She's called to be a Christian woman. And based on the standards that she is called by God, she wants to hold that up. If that's not what you're trying to do you? Like, we're here to respect everyone's opinions and right to make those choices. But understand, though, the Bible is very clear about what it does ask of us. It calls us to be set apart. It calls us to be intentional about our action. And it calls us to be mindful of the things that we do. Some of us need to really ask ourselves, ooh, that was a super. Anyway, some of us really need to ask ourselves, right? what is my intention in this situation, right? Is my intention really just to prolong how long I can get this access to her, get my access to him? Is my intention, for example, to trap him? Like, use the word loosely, right? Oh, I'll move in with him, but I know if I do this, it'll make him more open to marrying me. Like, we need to be honest with ourselves, right? Ask the Lord to really inspect us and be straight from the jump, right? Men and women come from the table, say, look, if this looks like it's going to be for marriage, I would like us to do, I'm gonna put this out there, pre-engagement counseling at like maybe a year, right? If it's good, then we can look to engage. And I'd like to get married as soon as it's reasonable for us. If they don't like it, they can leave from then. We don't have to invest any extra time. And as soon as you know, we need to be real honest about that. So I want to thank you all for joining us on Flow Presents today. Know that this is a space where we want to invite and encourage everyone to have open, honest dialogue about things that are impacting our life today, now. So as a moderator, I stayed away from this answer, but based on the definition of shacking up, I will have to say, y'all, in my humble opinion, man, stay away from it, man. There are too many things to be wrapped up on, right? Too many things to be wrapped on. Just be mindful of that. But if you're here for a conversation, join us. Our next series will begin the first weekend in November. We're taking off next week. So enjoy time with your family. Go out and do something to recharge and reset. We will see you guys the first weekend in November, which I believe is the 8th or so. And we thank y'all, man. Peace out.
Don't forget to vote.
Yo, whoa. I haven't even hit the button. Please don't forget to vote. Please don't forget to vote. Your vote matters. If you haven't bailed it in already, that means you prepared to stand in whatever line with your mask on to make your vote count. Please, y'all, get out there and vote. Get out there and vote. Hit us up, right? At our Instagram, please, Flow Ministries. Let us know that you voted. On Facebook, let us know that you're in the Flow group. Let us know that you voted. Please get out there and vote. Now I can say peace out, y'all.